Hey guys, 22 Plinkster here. This past summer I got to visit the Henry Repeating Arms plant that's located in New Jersey. While I was there, Anthony Imperato and myself, which Anthony is the owner of Henry Repeating Arms, discussed me going and taking a trip and a factory tour of the Rice Lake, Wisconsin plant. No one has ever been able to take video cameras into the plant before, and I thought it was a great honor that he would actually allow me to do this. So if you guys wanting to see how a Henry is made, stay tuned. I have worked for Henry now for about 4 years, and for about 2.5, 3 years, I've actually been the host of their YouTube channel called Henry TV. So if you like Henrys as much as I do, subscribe to the channel. I will put a link to the channel in the description and also the comments. So subscribe to that channel. And without any further ado, here is the video and the factory tour of the Rice Lake plant. Good friend of mine, Andy, here at the Rice Lake, Wisconsin. Is that how you say Wisconsin?
Pretty close.
All right. Plant. And this is where Henry rifles are made, and also some of the shotguns also. Andy, tell us a little bit about what you do and what we're going to see in here.
Right, so my name's Andy Wickstrom. I'm Vice President and General Manager of Henry Repeating Arms. Today we're at our Rice Lake, Wisconsin plant, and we're going to do some video, and we're happy to show you our process.
So no one has ever been inside of here with a video camera showing the process of how a Henry's made.
Yeah, definitely a first time for us, so we'll see how it goes.
All right, let's go inside.
Well, today we're going to follow a 4570 through production here at Henry. First of all, I'd like to apologize for the noise and the sound not being as good as you might like to hear. This is a factory and everything's still running. So as you can see here, we're producing 4570 receivers at this step. What I'm holding here is a forging. Each one of our receivers starts as a steel forging. The next step goes through a horizontal machining center here where there's 2 different steps to completing each receiver. Each receiver at each step gets checked for 100% on certain features, but ultimately what we're going for here is a well-running and safe operating rifle for each one of you. And this is a very important step in producing what we all expect out of a Henry rifle. For every receiver, there needs to be a trigger guard. On a 4570, we start with a trigger guard forging. Each one is machined in several steps on machines like this one. Again, we can see the trigger guard shape forming the pistol grip on the 4570. Each one comes out of the machine and receives a number of quality assurance checks that we do on every single piece, documentation, as well as additional quality checks to make sure that every single one performs well and is safe for each one of you. Making a good quality barrel starts with good material. Each one of our barrels starts out as a barrel blank, chamfered, gets loaded into a gun drill. We have several of these gun drills. This one happens to be a twin spindle where raw material is loaded in the gun drill. And you can see right now what he's doing is he's removing the material after it's been drilled. Each one of these barrels gets quality tested again. He's marking the ends. He's measuring run out on both ends. And this is, again, part of how we make a good, accurate Henry rifle for each one of you. After we drill each barrel, the next step is reaming. Essential in reaming is good quality tools. Again, this is a step where even a rifle barrel starts out as a smooth bore, because this is our steps where we go from drill to ream, and next will be rifling. Final step before we start machining the outside of the barrel, finishing off the bore, is our button rifling step. So people often ask or misunderstand what button rifling actually is. What we're doing here is we're pulling the button through the bore at a specified twist rate and speed so that each one comes out perfect to the standard. After each one is done, we're doing dimensional quality checks where we're checking both the bore and the groove area and diameter. Following the lathe operation where we turn the outside diameter on the barrel, the next step In this vertical machining center, we're putting in the dovetails where we're going to do both the sights and the tube support dovetails on this 4570 barrel. Again, each part gets quality checked out of each machine, a series of quality checks that will guarantee function and safety for each rifle we make. One of the other major parts in making a rifle is, of course, the bolt. In our case, the center fire bolts are made here in a couple of these work centers, where we start with a blank that we've cut on a lathe. And here in the vertical, there's 3 different steps where we're eventually going to come up with this, which is, this one happens to be a 30-30 bolt. Very similar to the 4570 we're making here today, other than the case diameter. The function is still the same in the rifle. Each one of these comes off, again, and gets a number of quality checks. And each one is ultimately verified so that it will be safe operating and, again, proof to function. After receivers come from the CNC department, they come to our polishing department. And here in steel polishing, we're going to start the first steps. Final step in producing a matte finish on a steel receiver is we're going to hit it with glass bead here. So this is a process where we use a specified type of material and a specified pressure and time. We have a couple different specs we do here for our all-weather finish or our blued finish. But ultimately it comes off this same machine with the same operator and a completely manual operation. The parts we assemble in our New Jersey plant are actually produced here in Wisconsin prior to being shipped for assembly. An example of that is the Golden Boy. The Golden Boy was born here in this plant almost 20 years ago now. This is a Golden Boy cover. Golden Boy covers, receivers, barrel bends, extractors, ejectors, scope mount sights are all made here in this plant, where we are going to ship them to New Jersey to get final assembly. Many of the parts in all Henry rifles, regardless of whether they're assembled here in Rice Lake or in Bayonne, New Jersey, the parts are made here in Rice Lake. So after polishing of 4570 receivers, barrels, they go through the next process where they get assembled, black oxide, and finally they come here to this room where we're doing all the marking on the barrels, receivers. This includes the model, the serial number on the receiver, and on the barrel we're marking the caliber. On the other side of the barrel, we're noting the company name, of course, and the location it's manufactured, all required by law. And then in this final step, we do the laser marking. Each one of the things I mentioned are being completed right here on this machine. So in this step, we're bringing all the materials we made here. This included the receiver, the trigger guard, the bolt, several other of the internal parts, along with all our bought-in materials where they went through pre-assembly operations, and finally in here to the guys here, which have a 3-station setup where they're putting together these 4570s. These guys rotate through a little bit, but mostly this is their world where they're putting together 4570s. And as we can see here, it's all hand assembly. Each one of these parts is assembled. You know, you're not going to see a lot of fitting here. This is an assembly operation. Each one of these parts is made with precision so that when these things go together, they work the first time. So here we're assembling a locking bolt, and here comes our trigger guard assembly. And assembly screw. Here we're going to test some function, make sure it's running like a Henry. And here we got that's our go gauge, no go. Yep, all good. You can see these guys have done this before. Once we got those checks done, we can do the final steps to put it together complete to go down the line and ultimately be finished up with wood, forearm cap, finish the tube support, and magazine tube support. All right, so the next step here, we're putting the forearm on. Where we have a forearm cap support here. So this supports the tube and the cap, and then we have a forearm cap. In our final step, we're going to the rack. We're going to get the second step parts. We're going to put the magazine tube support in. So this is what fastens the outer mag tube to the barrel. Gets pressed in, comes down. So here we're checking alignment. This ultimately is where we're going to close the gun. And this is where we're going to assemble it completely. The stock's going to go on. So these are screwdrivers that are preset to a predetermined torque level. These are not your average electric screwdrivers. So here in the final step, he's going to do a quick function check with some dummy rounds. Checking that outer mag tube support. Next step, they'll come down the line here and we're going to do a number of different checks. We're going to recheck our headspace one more time. And when we come in here, this is our proof and function cell where this door would shut for a proof test where we're protecting our operator in case of damage. Ultimately, after proof testing, we would function test with standard rounds. In this case, what was going through here last was a 410. You can see here, and ultimately the 4570s come through here, and again we'll get a proof and ultimately 5 function tested, at least 5, before they would. And once they pass that test, they're going to go off on the rack and go out to our cosmetic inspection step. The final step is putting guns in the box. In this area, 4570s and every model we make goes in the box in this area. Not the most glamorous place, but probably most important, and what we measure ourselves by is guns in the box. The steps we go through here, ultimately each one, before it goes in the box, gets a number of safety checks, a final cosmetic check, a bore check, and finally, this is where everything is going from us to you.